Level 1, the vassal's yoke. You are nothing. A minor chieftain in the dusty, barren hills of Anshan. Your people are crushed under the heel of the Median Empire. King Astyages sits on the throne. He is a paranoid, ruthless tyrant. A monster who slaughters his own bloodline to keep his crown. And you are his vassal. This is your ultimate nerf. You have no gold. You have no army. You have absolute powerlessness. Every time you kneel, you taste the dirt. Every time you pay tribute, you swallow your pride. One wrong look, one whisper of rebellion, and Astyages will mount your head on a spike. But the fire in your chest burns. You play the loyal servant. You smile at the king's envoys. You nod. You obey. But in the shadows, you are working. You whisper to the tribal elders in the dead of night. You forge quiet alliances. You stockpile whatever scraps of iron and loyalty you can find. You are a ghost in your own land. Waiting. Watching. Planning. Astyages thinks you are a dog on a short leash. He has no idea he is raising a wolf. Level 2, the Defector's Gambit. The year is 553 BC. Time is out. You launch a suicidal rebellion against the massive Median Empire. Astyages sends a colossal, heavily armed host to crush you. You stand on the dusty plains. The ground shakes beneath the boots of countless enemy soldiers. You are hopelessly outnumbered. The metallic stench of blood and impending slaughter hangs in the dry air. If you fight, you die today. But you do not panic. Wars are not just won with iron. They are won with the mind. You know the enemy commander, Harpagus. You know his secret. He harbors a bloody, festering vendetta against his own tyrant king. Before the charge, you strike. You engineer a brilliant, high-stakes diplomatic coup on the absolute edge of oblivion. You send a single message. You offer him the one thing he craves, revenge. The battlefield goes dead silent. Then, Harpagus lowers his blade. His massive army turns their banners. They march across the sand. They kneel to you. In a single, pulse-pounding heartbeat, the impossible happens. You dodge the slaughter. You snatch the Median crown. Level 3, the Golden Menace. The scent of gold and blood drifts from the west. King Croesus of Lydia is unimaginably wealthy. He smells your vulnerability. He invades your lands, tearing through your borders. But that is not the true threat. Croesus is forging a mega-alliance. Egypt. Sparta. Babylon. A ticking clock starts pounding in your head. If you wait for spring, this unstoppable coalition will unite. They will march east. They will crush your fledgling empire into dust. You refuse to wait for death. You choose the impossible. You march your army into the dead of winter. The cold is absolute. Freezing winds rip through your armor. Ice slices into the skin of your starving men. Every step through the unforgiving terrain is agony. Boots crunch through deep, blinding snow. Men collapse, their lips blue and hands numb. But your will does not break. You march at the very front. You drag your freezing army across this frozen hellscape. You will strike the Lydian capital before the ice melts. Croesus expects you to freeze and cower. Instead, you become the winter storm. Level 4, the Camel Protocol. It is 546 BC. The Battle of Thymbra. You stand outmatched on the blood-soaked dirt. Vastly outnumbered. Across the plain, the ancient world's most devastating shock cavalry locks their lances. The ground vibrates under thousands of massive Lydian warhorses. Their armor catches the blinding sun. They prepare to charge. To trample your men into dust. If that cavalry hits your lines, your empire dies today. But you do not panic. You see a weakness in their strength. You order the baggage train unloaded. You mount your men onto your supply camels. It is a massive, desperate gamble. A stroke of tactical genius. You push the beasts to the absolute front line. The Lydian cavalry charges. The earth screams. Then, they hit the scent. The alien, foul stench of the camels drifts across the battlefield. The Lydian horses panic. They rear up. They buck. They scream in sheer terror. The enemy's unstoppable charge instantly shatters into total chaos. Their greatest weapon is completely neutralized. You draw your sword. You command the advance. You crush their fractured lines. You capture the wealthiest kingdom on earth, entirely intact. Level 5, the Eastern Bleed. The West is yours. But the East is bleeding out. A relentless new threat rips at your frontiers. Untamable nomadic tribes. You march into the suffocating heat of Bactria and Sogdiana. The air is thick with choking dust. The brutal sun blisters your skin. You do not fight a traditional army here. You fight phantoms. Highly mobile horse archers strike without warning. A sudden whistle of arrows. A scream in the ranks. Before you can draw your sword, the enemy vanishes. It is a brutal, agonizing war of attrition. Years drag by. Your men are exhausted. Their morale bleeds into the dry earth. Every mile costs you blood. Every outpost is a target. But you refuse to retreat. If you fail, these raiders will pierce the heart of your empire. Everything you built will collapse from the outside in. You tighten your grip on the leather reins. You grit your teeth against the blinding sandstorm. You will break these shadows. You will physically secure these bleeding borders. Even if you must hunt them down one by one. Level 6, the Impenetrable Fortress. Look up. The shadow of the walls blocks the sun. This is Babylon. The undisputed crown jewel of the ancient world. Its defenses are legendary. A colossal, towering fortress of mud brick and arrogance. The walls are so terrifyingly massive that chariots race side by side across the top. Inside, they have stockpiled decades of food. They laugh at your army. This is your ultimate nightmare. Ancient siege warfare dictates you must starve them out. But a traditional siege will take years. You do not have years. Every day spent sitting in this baking, relentless dust bleeds your treasury dry. A prolonged standoff will bankrupt your empire. The brutal sun will decimate your army's morale. Disease will rot your camps. Worse, your newly conquered lands are watching. If you show weakness here, fatal rebellions will ignite across your borders. Your entire life's work will burn to ash. You stand before the impenetrable gates. You hear the Babylonian guards mocking your men. You do not flinch. Your jaw clenches. You cannot break these walls with stones. You cannot starve them out. You must shatter the very rules of war. Level 7, the Euphrates heist. The year is 539 BC. The ticking clock is deafening. Your siege supplies are completely empty. You must act tonight, or retreat in total disgrace. Instead of fighting the walls, you fight nature. You execute the most audacious engineering miracle of antiquity. Upstream, your engineers dig. They split the earth. You divert the mighty Euphrates River itself. The rushing waters drop. The deep riverbed drains into an empty, muddy expanse. The path is open. Inside Babylon, the music swells. The city is drunk, distracted by a massive religious festival. They think they are safe. They are wrong. Your troops slip into the dark, wet mud. You march silently. Feet squelch in the muck. You move directly under the shadow of the impenetrable bronze water gates. No alarms sound. No arrows fly. You breach the heart of the world's greatest city from beneath. In a single, bloodless night, the crown jewel falls. No catastrophic siege. No blackened ashes. No shattered infrastructure. You do not destroy Babylon. You steal it right out of their hands. Level 8, the Cylinder Decree. You sit on the throne of Babylon. The world is yours. But the silence is heavy. You now rule the largest empire in human history. The threat is no longer an enemy sword. It is administrative collapse. Millions of conquered, resentful subjects stare at your gates. They hate you. The sheer weight of their anger can crush your empire from the inside. If they rise, you fall. The ancient world demands blood. It demands iron chains and mass executions. You refuse. You grab a stylus. You press it into a cylinder of wet clay. You invent a radical new blueprint. You grant absolute religious freedom. You outlaw slavery across your lands. You shatter the chains of the Babylonian captivity. You tell the exiled Jews to go home. You replace the old standard of terror with tolerance. Rival kings whisper that you are weak. But they do not understand your genius. You are weaponizing mercy. By setting the oppressed free, you forge an unbreakable bond. You turn millions of desperate enemies into fiercely loyal assets. Your empire will not be held together by fear. It will be held together by choice. Level 9, the Satrap's Web. Your empire spans millions of square miles. From the Mediterranean Sea to the harsh Hindu Kush. It is impossibly vast. This is a death sentence. The ultimate enemy of ancient empires is not an army. It is distance. Information moves at the sluggish speed of a walking horse. By the time you hear of a rebellion, it is already a civil war. Your borders are dangerously fracturing. You must grip the chaos before it shatters. You design a brilliant solution, the satrapy. You divide the earth into 20 provinces. You place loyal governors on local thrones to keep the peace. But blind trust is a luxury you cannot afford. You need speed. You order the earth carved open. You build the legendary Royal Road. A massive highway of packed dirt and stone slicing across the continent. You invent the rapid relay postal system. Riders push horses to the absolute brink of death, day and night. Mud flies. Hooves pound the earth. Messages that took months now take mere days. You become an omniscient force. You detect whispers of treason in the dark. You intercept. You deploy. You crush regional rebellions before a rival king can even draw his sword. Level 10, the Blood of the Queen. The year is 530 BC. You stand at the absolute summit of human power. But the north is wild. You ride to face the legendary Queen Tomyris. Her Massagetae tribes are vicious, untamed steppe nomads. You cross the rushing river. You march directly into a nightmare. The horizon turns black. An overwhelming swarm of riders descends upon your lines. The battle is utter chaos. Arrows blot out the sun. Steel clashes against bone. The air chokes with thick, blinding dust and the heavy stench of blood. You are surrounded. Hopelessly outnumbered. But you do not cower. You fight at the very front, your sword heavy with gore. Until a screaming blade finds its mark. You fall onto the cold, unforgiving dirt. You meet a true warrior's end. Your breath fades into the wind. But your name becomes immortal. You are not buried in a towering pyramid. Or a massive golden temple. You leave behind a shockingly modest stone tomb at Massagetae. A simple, quiet resting place. No divine arrogance. No monstrous monuments. Just the eternal legacy of a man who conquered the world and set it free.